In other words, a work of art is a matter of altering things so that what you find moving in aesthetic shows and other things do not show. So you see what your job is. There. Study him. All right?
So when I paint it, you're not going to say, that's too dark?
I don't know what I'm going to say. Trees, why are you drawing? Why are you drawing? You don't need to draw.
I need to paint.
Just paint.
Okay. I'm looking for color, Mr. Loper.
That's what I said. Just look for color and paint. That's too wishy-washy. Here you are definite in these things, and here you got mushy in this stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. What you have here is fine, but as you keep covering, when you get it covered, actually you want to make sure that you're not painting the objects, that you're just painting the colors. This is why most people paint bad pictures. They're so busy painting the objects, they don't see the painting. From here down, your picture is just as good as usual.
Okay.
But up here, it's become background, and you're trying to make background out of it. And as you make background, you're not painting your normal way. Yeah. These are softer colors, but they're colors. You see, people think colors are red, yellow, and blue, and that's why they don't understand what we're doing. See? These are colors. They're beautiful colors, you see.
I know. You can do that. You're amazing.
You can do it. Try
Okay,
it.
we're going to try.
Try it.
I will try.
Picasso, he learned by looking at Cézanne. He learned by looking at El Greco. He did not copy El Greco. He did not copy Cézanne, but he converted it into a new way of seeing that became Picasso. I got a little grouchy last night. I told him I was going to go back to teaching like all the rest of the teachers, teach you values, how you make dark and light, because they weren't painting colors next to color. They were just painting. And they weren't putting down colors at all. So I got depressed about it, and so I told them I was going to surrender and do what they like.
Surrender. That'll be the day.
You learn about art by studying the great artists. The kind of light that Tintoretto was using, El Greco took that kind of light and reworked it into a new form. Then Cézanne came along, used what El Greco had done, and made a new kind of art out of that. You never copy a previous tradition. You simply take it and rework it. And as you rework it into a new form, you adapt it. You don't adopt it, you adapt it, and you come up with a kind of work that expresses your kind of personality. My kind of lines, I try to get to be so that they're expressive of the same way my handwriting is expressive of me. And if I don't have lines, I just paint the color up to the edge of something and then paint the next color up to the edge. Then I'm not putting down my personality of line. Now that's a very easy thing for anybody to understand. But there are so many painters who don't know that their line has to be their own handwriting. They think just because they can draw and paint, that makes it. And it will not make it. Then I have another thing that I do with my paintings. I like my paintings, after all the painting is done, to take on the same kind of a quality that this thing has. As you look at it, you see it sparkle and glow. Can you see the glow in there? And the colors? That's what I want my picture to take on as it gets to where it's becoming a painting. Most people don't have the least idea how painters get to where they get. They simply think it's somebody that has a gift and lots of talent, and that makes them become an artist. It has very little to do with being an artist. You learn about art, and if you don't add something to the way art's done, you are not an artist. I've made a commitment that I was going to try to be the best artist that Delaware's ever produced. And that's why I wanted to learn more than anybody else. And if you learn more, you got a better chance. We went in town to look around and see what we could find that would be Cézanne's work in his own hometown. And there was nothing of Cézanne in that town. We looked in doctors' offices and lawyers' offices, peeping in the windows, and there was nothing. We even went to shops where they sold the T-shirts and little dishes and things. Didn't even have a dish with Cézanne's name or anything, a picture of anything of Cézanne in the whole town. And it made me feel a little better about myself, because that's the same way the town at home here felt about me. I didn't seem to matter that much. There was a life. When people lived in the cities, they had a life. Everybody knew each other and they talked to each other, and there was a communication between all the kinds of people. In my neighborhood, there were Italians on 12th Street. There were Polish and blacks on Heald Street. This was called Frogtown. And the reason it was called Frogtown was it was marsh all out over that land. And at night you could hear the frogs croaking. And people who lived on the other side of the bridge called us froggies. I did not know anything about art itself until I used to see my grandmother would bring home calendars. I think it was either Hercules or Atlas, and they would be calendars by N.C. Wyeth. Well, that's the first thing I knew, that people actually painted pictures. My mother was not living at the house then, she was in New York. And so when she came back, she met my stepfather, and he got interested in religion because my mother insisted he go to church, and she kept him going to church until he got what was called the Holy Spirit. And in the black way of saying things, he seemed to be called, they said some people are called to be ministers. So he got so good at being a minister that they gave him a charge, what they called it, in Merchantville, New Jersey, and then he went over there to live. So I didn't live with my mother very much. I always lived with my grandmother. I was very curious. I was very, very curious. Well, I started drawing about, let's see, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I mean regularly. In school they had programs where you do a poster. That's the earliest thing I can remember that I ever did. Of course, I didn't win the prize. Another fellow won the prize. I was always jealous of that. When I graduated from high school, it was in the middle of the Great Depression. And by this time, I could draw fairly well. So my wife went up to see about getting relief, and when she went there, somebody was talking about, they were starting a thing called WPA, Art Project. And they said, we got to find some people for that. So she said, well, my husband can draw. And so they said, all right, tell him to go to 14th and Market. It taught me how to be very skillful at copying anything. We could copy anything very precisely. But I had a friend who was working at the same time in that place, who had been to art school. His name was Sam Feynman. Sam said, Ed, said, this stuff's picture making, but it's not art. He says, if you want to know more about art, go up to Philadelphia and go to the museum, the Philadelphia Museum, and you'll look at stuff and you'll begin to realize that this is not art and that it has no real value other than for this job. So if you want to be an artist, go to the museum and study what the painters in the museum are doing. So I decided I'd try that. So I went to the museum every Saturday for about 25 years. And then I decided I would make a painting that would be in the direction of the painters I saw in the gallery. I looked out of my back kitchen door one summer night, and at that time I could see Governor Prince Boulevard Bridge and see Hotel DuPont and the other Hotel Darling, which was an important hotel in Wilmington in those days. I tried to get the atmosphere of the rainy, shiny night with the lights that were flickering and glowing, and the feeling that the sky had a swirl and movement to it. I didn't know that this stuff was important in art. I just thought I was copying the thing exactly what I saw, and I did the best I could with it. So then I sent it to the Delaware Art Museum, and it got in the show, and it got an honorable mention. And some people were surprised to see me there. Some almost shook my hand, but when they get their hand out, they'd snatch it back real quick. So that was fun to notice. I worked at Allied Kid. When I got home from work, I would go out and paint. So a lot of my pictures were evening paintings. And when I painted a picture of the ladies picking ashes, that was a windy evening, late in the evening, and they had picked ashes on the dump all day. And I was watching them, so I went out and painted the ladies before they went home. So I was still trying to get a mood. I was conscious of looking at things. Yeah, I had a habit of looking. This is where I stood, here. And all the people around thought I was some kind of a nut. They couldn't understand what I'm doing that for. As you look here, you see different kinds of shapes and patterns. Like there's a rectangle back there, then you have a small little piece of light, then you have another piece of light, then you get a wide piece. So each one of those pieces of that light of the sky makes a different shape. And as I was looking through here, all that stuff on the left were trees all over there. You couldn't see, that building wasn't there, it was just trees. And so I got a chance to play around with those kinds of shapes, patterns, spaces, and light and dark. Those days I like to do light and dark. So you got a chance to do many things with the light and the dark. So it wasn't the thing that I wanted, it was trying to get something to give me a great variety. This is where I went to school, and this is also the first place that they ever gave me an art exhibition. I was able to shoot a basketball pretty well. And my grandson told me the other day that he didn't know I ever played a sport. He thought I was just somebody who painted pictures and stuff of that sort. So he read that I had played sports, and he said, "You must have been good, because Dunbar High School in Washington is considered one of the top schools for basketball in the United States." And we beat them. We were good. Sports teach you that you never, ever give up. You go all the way to the end, and you don't give up until the game is over. And you still don't give up. You still think you can do it. Well, if you're going to be involved in the arts, it's the kind of thing that you have to make up your mind that this is what you're going to do. Sports teach you that you can stand adversity. And if you're a good athlete, you never give up no matter what happens. Well, when people didn't want my work around, I knew they didn't want me around. I knew why. But I made up my mind I was not ever going to give up. I made up my mind I was going to be as good as any artist has ever had in Delaware. So I decided I was going to stick to it no matter what happened. And a few good things happened. Well, my way of trying to understand works of art began to get together after I read a book written by the great art collector and educator, Dr. Albert Barnes. I decided to go to the Barnes Foundation to study. My teacher there, Violette de Masia, was the person who really taught me how to learn to understand the work of art. From her, I learned that paintings are about qualities, and that artists use line, light, color, and space to express their way of seeing the world. This picture is very, very important to me, because while being here at the Barnes Foundation, one day I walked by and I looked at this picture, and I saw that right next to the eye there's a color, then above it's another color, then below it's a color, and that every inch you look is nothing but pieces of color. And from that day on, instead of painting values and shading and all those things that other people paint, I decided to be a painter who would paint with color throughout the whole picture. And if you look at the picture, you'll see that it's nothing but colors, one color next to another. This is what I'm teaching. And I'm hoping that other people will be able to see it, because it's very valuable. It makes the picture have a glow that you can't get when you buy some color called flesh color. Now, once in a while, I've met somebody who would buy flesh color. And of course, it wasn't my color, flesh, and I asked him, how could that be flesh color? And it doesn't happen to all humans. So what happens here, and I'm pointing at, happens to everybody on Earth. Now, my way of seeing things is based on the traditions of the great painters who've lived. I see youngsters now and think they're going to make up an art of their own. It's not going to have anything to do with these people, these old people that they never saw. My work is an extension of the great painters that have lived. Cezanne uses a completely different kind of light. The light in this picture is done through something that originally started, I think, from El Greco. And that is, he has the dark surface, and there's a dark through there, and then he has this light here. He has done it in a completely different way than it had been done before. And out of this way of doing, Picasso and Braque and Juan Gris And all of the cubists have studied him and learned how he did his light so that they use that same kind of light when they do cubism and other forms of painting. And these are the kinds of things you don't learn in art schools. You only learn that from some artist who has discovered these things and is willing to pass them on to the rest of the people. And the light in this picture is just tremendous. All through he's doing that. Look at the pieces. And the light is doing all kinds of things. Look at it. The more you know about what's going on in a work of art, the more you can enjoy it. And I think I was born to teach this. We're so used to bad painting that we tend not to know what real painting is about. We tend to think how well that person can copy something as art. And what's important is how well that person can see the world that we live in and can bring forth what we otherwise would not be able to see. Well, all human beings can do this. This is not something that everybody can't do, and that only certain people with great talent can do it. Well, I don't believe in talent. I believe that with the proper instruction, that people who don't think they can do any works of art can do works of art.
Oh, here he comes.
She's doing something unusually terrific. She's starting here just putting down colors. That's right. That's right. Just smear the colors, just pieces of colors. It becomes alive.
And don't worry.
Don't.
Now, see, it's just not going to be as delicate doing this. Already I see that, but don't worry about it.
Don't think about anything. Just lay the paint on. Don't even waste your time thinking. In painting, spaces are like spaces in music. You have this size from here to there. That would give you a more of a variety. Then you'd have like the music notes here, there, next note, a long note over to here. Then you have this note. Then you'd have maybe one over here so that it would be a different size. And then this one. It makes sense. And it's that simple. People make everything so complicated. The intervals between the trees, this one is this far. Then you open, and that next one would be that far. Then the next one would be another distance from. So you make sure that there's distances that are not repetitive. Now the public ought to know these things so that when they walk into a museum and look at paintings, they can see that for themselves with the stroking, so that the way the strokes are put on is interesting. Now see, you have some of the strokes that are put on more interesting on this side. Over here it's a bit on the pictorial.
Sure.
All right?
Okay.
You're going to make out all right. This is your first picture.
I know, it is.
And you shock me how well you're doing. I don't believe it's possible. And if this comes out, which I think it is, it's going to be pretty darn nice. When you look at that one and you look at this one, her sense of color is in this one just the same as it's in this one already. So she can't fail. This is wonderful teaching art. You see people do things that are wonderful. Don't think about anything, just paint. I don't mind getting wet, believe me. Raindrops on something and she's solving a problem, she's suffering. You work like that devil doing this. This is
complicated.
It's complication. and you have to do a lot of inventing to do it. But it's fun to do it, and it sends you up the wall, but it requires all the same things that we normally do, but adding a problem on top of it that is problem solving, and you have to solve the problem. And then you look at yourself, how well have I solved that problem? And a lot of times you've made a mess. This painting by Renoir, it's well painted, but it's not Renoir. He was influenced by Manet, he was influenced by Courbet at this time in his life. So he is not Renoir any more than when I have early paintings, they are Loper. I feel badly when people like what I did early. Some gallery in New York wants my early work. Well, it's insulting to me because it means you're accepting me when I wasn't a good artist. And I don't want to be accepted when I wasn't a good artist. I want to be a good artist to be accepted. My work I'm proud of is what I do today, because I'm bringing forth what I am, which I couldn't do before. First of all, I was born with a gift of not giving up on anything. And when I'm teaching, I make sure that I get it across to other human beings so they will know what art's about. The more you know about what's going on in a work of art, the more you can enjoy it. I mean, when Janet and I go out to eat, I sit there at the darn table redesigning the knife and fork and the plate and all into design. And she said something and shakes her head. And people are looking at me wondering what the devil I'm doing. But I'm studying art every minute of my life. I never stop. I liked to win. I don't like my little old gray-haired wife beating me playing golf. I hate them, and she laughs when she beats me. And so she hates to lose also. So we fight like the dickens trying to beat each other. And she usually wins because she can do something that I can't do. She can putt like a whiz. Why I like to paint here is there's always a variety of shapes inside of that particular shape of the building. It's totally colorblind. I haven't run into any racial prejudice over the 40 years I've been coming here. I've run into people who are not nice people, because nice people or people who are not nice are everywhere, but had nothing to do with race. And I've met lots of people who were extra nice to me because of my race. I had always assumed that everybody has some prejudice, including myself. She's the only person I've ever met in my life who has none whatsoever. And that was a surprise. And she takes care of me better than anybody else I've ever known. And I think that's wonderful. Sometimes I get very depressed about it because I don't always treat her as well as she treats me. And then I feel guilty. She told me years ago that I was the best man she ever had. And so I stick to being the best man. We have a lot of fun. I see people who are very unhappy with each other. And I guess they stay together because they don't have anything else to do. We stay together because we can't get along without each other. What I'm doing here now is I'm weaving the picture together, and I'm doing something that the very early masters of painting knew how to do. They learned how to take you and bring you across the picture like this, and then so the picture is built from the outside in instead of doing composition. People draw compositions, they don't know how to fill their canvas with the parts that are worthwhile being in their picture. They end up with all these big skies and wasting the area so that most of the picture is being wasted. So I try to use every inch of the canvas with something that is moving and aesthetic. I'd like to be remembered as a painter who brought color to American painters, so they didn't have to copy other kinds of artists. I think that's probably what I was born for. And when that's finished and other people have learned it enough, then it's time I'll go. And I think that's why I haven't died yet. You gotta try to hunt for color, please. If you don't find color, then it's not painting. So please hunt the color. How's Bob doing?
Bob is doing well.
He's doing well?
Yeah, he's doing well.
I told him he'd do all right
He's doing well.
if he'd only look for what he's supposed to look for instead of looking for the object, look for the color. You're gonna do well also, but you gotta look for color.
No discipline.
Huh? You have no discipline. That's because you're an engineer. They don't do much. They just remember the formulas. And you can't use a formula for
I
painting.
use a formula for 40 years.
Yeah, but you use one. You just hide it. Artists have to be true. And you only have one truth, what you see as you look at it. And that's truth for you. I won't see the same thing that you see, and I can't. I wish I could. But I can only see my way of seeing, and I'm stuck with it.
Frankly, sometimes I don't see what you see.
Of course you don't. And I don't want you to see what I see. I want you to see what you see. The painter becomes great because he does great things. It's not the other way around. If I can make it possible for other human beings to see the world in a way they've never seen it before, then I'm lucky enough to be called an artist.